So unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard by now that the Intel 9900K and 9th gen family of processors has been announced. It'll be available for purchase later on in October, and we can't really show you anything performance-wise until then, but we can at least start talking about it a little bit and show you some components. So we are gonna go ahead and kick things off here by taking a first look here at the MSI Z390 Godlike MEG. Yeah, Intel's launching a new platform for this, but that's a point in discussion on its own. But yeah, we're gonna see what MSI is bringing to the table with the very first motherboard that we are looking at for this new line of processors. The Strafe RGB Mark II from Corsair features genuine Cherry MX switches, per key RGB backlighting, USB pass-through for convenient access, and dedicated multimedia keys with integrated volume knob, making it a great value for gamers and keyboard enthusiasts alike. Learn more about the Strafe RGB Mark II by visiting the link down below. So this video is not gonna be about Intel 9th gen specifically. There's a lot of information out there. I didn't go to the event. I elected to stay home and spend some time with family. So please go and check out some of my colleagues out there like Gamers Nexus, Paul from Paul's Hardware, Kyle from Bitwit, Hardware Canucks. Those guys were all there, I believe. And you can find information on their channels that go a little bit more into depth. What I will say though is it is of course, a pricing point of contention as always, because the 8700K, when it launched, it was obviously Coffee Lake, 6 cores, 12 threads with hyperthreading on an i7, and it was more expensive than the 7700K, which was roughly-ish the same price as the 6700K, and they are calling this an i9, a 9900K. Don't confuse that with the typical 900 series that you would see, like the 7980XE, which was on X299. This is a Z370 mainstream platform processor. So don't make the mistake of pairing it with the wrong motherboard, just putting that out there. Also too, there's rumors that it does work perfectly fine on a Z370 motherboard. So we will be testing that when we do our full performance review, but obviously to get all the features, you're gonna want the Z390 chipset, which was kind of the same thing they did with the 8700K. Now, in terms of pricing, this processor is rumored to be over $500, which puts it significantly more expensive than the 2700X, which is obviously, I think, where a lot of us are gonna be doing our testing, because you can actually get a 2700X for under $400, leaving you enough money to buy the processor and a motherboard on AMD for the same price of just the processor that's currently launched on Intel. Obviously, there is a pricing model that everyone's following in 2018, which is jack the price as high as you possibly can, which really sucks because this is now the time to build a computer if you're going to. Everyone's kind of shown all their cards. You know it's coming, you know when it's coming, you know the pricing, so you're gonna be able to now make informed decisions without being worried something new is gonna come out down the line. So here it is right here. The MSI MEG Z390 Godlike. It is, the Godlike series from MSI has always been their full built Titanic when it comes to a motherboard. It has all the features and it's basically holding nothing back. It's overclocking friendly. This has a 16-phase power delivery system on it, and it is definitely a behemoth. Did I say it right this time? Behemoth? There's a lot of features on here. This is a very crowded motherboard. This is a very top of the line product. What I'd like is, back in the day, MSI used to color code their motherboards based on the tier that it was. Yellow was for overclocking. Remember the M power, X power. Then you had the blue, which was mainstream. So you have a blue motherboard, meant to mainstream. It had some overclocking features, some gaming features, but kind of just sort of a no frills. And then we had red, which was all their gaming stuff. Well, they've kind of done away with that now. And as you can see, we have a nice monochromatic gunmetal, sort of a titanium look, which is a lot more premium looking, and it's also gonna not clash with color scheme. So they're not forcing a color down your throat. MSI, thank you for that, because nothing's more annoying than having a great motherboard that's the wrong color and then you don't use it because of a superficial decision like that. I digress though, that was a tangent. So here we go. Here is the motherboard layout right here. If you look at all these chokes right here, you can tell there is a massive power delivery on this. 16 phases to give extremely clean power so that this can be used for extreme overclocking. You can also tell it's used for extreme overclocking because of the dual 8-pin EPS power right up here close to the CPU, giving plenty of current to the CPU if you really want to push this and go for world records and stuff, which obviously is going to take place once this launches. Up here at the top, you also have 3 fan headers for, well, technically 5. 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fan headers right here, which is kind of nice because That gives them close proximity to things like your AIO coolers, your fans that are up at the top of the case or the back of the case. And it really kind of sucks when motherboards will only put, or manufacturers will only put 1 or 2 CPU headers at the top and the rest are on the side or at the bottom, when most of the fans are at the top of the case or the front of the case. Speaking of fan headers, you have another 1, 2, 3 right here at the bottom, unless I'm missing one. And you've got 2 more that are right here in this shield. What's right next to it though is the supplemental power for the PCI Express lanes. And I don't like this being in the middle right here because this is an awkward place to put it. This is something that should have been down at the bottom if you ask me, because you're gonna be running this from your PCI Express power cable from your power supply. Running it up here right on top of your graphics card is a very strange location. So here's the memory slots right here. You can see they are shielded. This is supposed to help with more stable memory overclocking and just a better socket design, so you don't have EMF bleeding over into the sockets near it. This right here is a Q code readout, or basically a trouble code readout. So this will show a number depending on the post code, and you can see where your system freezes if it doesn't boot. And then right below this here, and we'll show this in a second, this is actually an OLED display that is customizable. Now this over here is actually an infinity window. This is just a design aesthetic. It looks like it goes down well for infinity because there's mirrors under there. Of course, you've got the MEG logo, which is going to light up right there. You've got the MSI Dragon, which is a part of every single product. But what I'm really happy about, and I'm so glad that they did this, dual USB 3.0 front header connections that are next to each other. Nothing is more annoying than having USB 3.0 header over here and another one down here. Because these are very thick cables with at least 3 Cs that are a pain in the ass to route, and then having to have them split and go off different directions just make the aesthetic look terrible. So the fact that they did that is a huge plus. I thanked them for that the second I saw them, I practically wanted to give my rep a hug because I was like, thank you for doing this. Most manufacturers aren't doing that. Now let's say that you are not really an overclocker, but you hear me preaching about how overclocking can give you more performance for free. MSI knows that not everyone's comfortable with that. So they've actually got this overclocking dial right here at the bottom. Now this actually will load up different settings in the BIOS to give you a boost in performance without having to go in there and manually overclock it, and it does it within safe parameters. So you don't have to worry about damaging your hardware because you didn't understand the settings and you pushed something too far and then something ends up in magic blue smoke. This knob right here will allow you to do different overclocks even while the system is powered on. So you could just turn this knob and it will self-adjust to give you more performance as long as the cooling headroom is there. So I would definitely recommend at least an AIO or a big Noctua air cooler if you're gonna be doing something like that. Right next to it, you've got surface mounted reset and power button, which is nice because if you're gonna use this on a test bench. And then down here, we also have a BIOS switch because this is a dual BIOS motherboard. So you could run some crazy BIOS settings for testing and then just flip back to standard if you want to use it as your regular desktop. We've got 3 onboard M.2 with what they're calling their shield frozer. Now this is not the first time we have seen something like this from MSI, where we have what's considered to be passive cooling for M.2. Now if you're not aware, M.2 or NVMe SSDs are extremely fast. But as such, they also can get extremely hot under constant read-write conditions. So MSI had actually come out with this, this cover on their previous motherboard for the Z390 that Steve from Gamers Nexus found to be a little bit lacking in design. It only touched one side of the M.2, not the other. It created a bit of a heat pocket. Only half the chips were being cooled if you had dual-sided NVMe chips or PCB, which many of them are now because capacities are increasing. But as you can see, we now have an awful lot of thermal pads on here, creating a situation where it's actually touching both sides of the M.2. Now they say they put a lot of R&D into this, a lot of testing, because they really are afraid of Steve at Gamers Nexus. No, they didn't actually say that, but they want to make the community happy. They agreed that there was improvement to be had there. Now if you look at the expansion card here, you can see it's actually only on one side. And I think the reason for that is the problem with the motherboard, as you can see, this is down on the surface, and then you have graphics cards on top of it, and it's impossible for air to get down there. But with this being like this, air can actually come in through the back and through the bottom and the top, wherever airflow is, because as you can see, there's a big gap under there. So it's actually touching the side of the chips that would be blocked, but the bottom side is not being, it's not actually touching any thermal pads or anything like that. So I guess one could say that they technically didn't have to put this on there at all. They could have just mounted the NVMEs and let them be air cooled, but without the top plate touching it, I guess maybe should be some testing done with that. If I know Steve, he will test this. So let's go ahead and power this on and see what it looks like with it all lit up. All right, so let's take a look at some of the lighting here. So as you can see, the OLED, look at that, True Gaming. And you can program that down there to actually be anything that you want. So I can make it say, Jayztwocents, the best YouTube channel in the history of YouTube. I mean, it would be a lie, but hey. As you can see, because we have no CPU in there, it's telling us CPU error. So this is extremely user-friendly in identifying what is wrong with your system and why it's not posting. You can also see that infinity window. Check that out. You see that window? How it just kind of goes on for infinity. I was gonna say something else after that, and I don't know what, so whatever.
And beyond.
And beyond, there we go. You can see the MEG is lit up, and then look at the dragon. See how the dragon just sort of glows through there? It's not like RGB in your face. This is RGB. You can make it RGB, but they have it just sort of glowing red out of the box. So I think that this is a very, very good implementation of features to make Z390 at least something exciting to talk about when it comes to motherboards. Because I feel like motherboards are the unsung hero. They are responsible for so much of your computer. They're responsible for everything, but they don't get any of the glory. The glory always goes to the graphics card because you get so many FPS, but the motherboard is responsible for everything. It's your mom. You respect your mom or she whoops your ass when you're out of line. At least she used to. Now you get in trouble if you do that. But my mom, she was German. She did not spare the rod. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and end it there. Obviously, we're gonna do a build with this. We're gonna do all kinds of stuff with Z390 and testing, and probably another overclocking session with Steve and Paul. I think that's become a bit of a tradition now. If something new comes out, we just overclock it until it breaks or someone gives up or whatever. And then when they give up, then you swoop in and take the score, or at least you try and make them think that you gave up while they moved on to other things, but we didn't really, because I care about my ego and I wanna be good. So I digress. But anyway, in fact, Phil even made a good point. He's like, this is the first MSI motherboard he's seen that doesn't look ridiculous, because some of the ways motherboard manufacturers in the past have gotten your attention by the motherboard being on a wall at Fry's Electronics or Micro Center or whatever is to make it basically jump up and down and scream and wave its arms going, hey, look at me. But the problem is then you look at it and you go, hey, look how ridiculous that motherboard looks. But not this one. It's all black and gunmetal and RGB goodness, but not RGB when you turn it on, which is really nice. So anyway, you guys tell me what you think in the comments down below. Like I said, we will be doing full builds with Z390 tests. We're gonna be doing all the hyperthreading testing on the i7 or i9s, non-hyperthreading on i7, seeing how things have progressed. But until then, we're gonna go, guys. Let us know what other products you want us to take a look at with the Z390 launch, and we will, of course, check it out. Thanks for watching, and as always, we will see you in the next one. I'm really glad I didn't shock myself on the back of that. I was all worried. Is it gonna shock me? Oh wow, those are lit up. Okay. All right, well, okay. There's that too.